Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 110th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So if you're familiar with my channel, you may know that Heltah Skeltah's seminal debut has long been one of my top vinyls to get that I looked for constantly, and for a long time couldn't find for a remotely reasonable price. Needless to say, I found one for an amount I didn't feel awful about spending. So now I finally get to talk about my favorite Boot Camp Clique related album. I've discussed Boot Camp Clique and their various members a little bit before, but I'll give another rundown here, just in case. They were basically a supergroup that consisted of other smaller acts like Heltah Skeltah, Black Moon, Smith& Wesson, and OGC, or Original Gun Clappers. Heltah Skeltah and OGC were originally in a group called Fab Five that then got recruited by Tech, Steel, Buckshot, and the rest to join the crew. The debut albums by each of these respective groups are all well worth your time, and I always thought it was so dope that these acts had not just some of the coolest group names in hip hop, but some of the best album covers as well. The covers for The Storm, The Shinin', Enter the Stage, and Nocturnal are all amazing, but more importantly, the music is as well. And most of these acts would go on to release at least one more quality album in their respective careers. My favorite of those second releases kind of mirrors my favorite for the debut albums, because in both cases I have to go with Heltah Skeltah. While their sophomore effort, Magnum Force, is just as good as their first album and features yet another example of killer cover art, I haven't managed to get my hands on that one yet. And even if I had, I'd still probably have to go with Nocturnal to discuss first, because I think it's important to highlight just how insanely ahead of their time Sean Price and Rockness Monster were. At this time they went by Ruck and Rock, but you can still hear the trademark flows and voices that they both have throughout their careers, especially Rock. Rockness is still doing that to this day, and while obviously Sean P passed away nearly a decade ago now, he had already successfully reanimated his career well after its initial first wind, kind of in the vein of Ghostface Killah or Master Ace. I believe Sean's noticeable voice change around the turn of the century resulted from R.A. the Rugged Man jumping on him in a show or something along those lines. However, he utilized this by adapting the flow he was using more often until he had his own unique style that never got boring or played out. He kind of became like Doom in the way that they both have these general rhyme schemes and structures they stick to, but apply it in this wide variety of contexts. There was really no reason for Sean P to pull out different styles when he sat in that pocket he had so well already, and even though he hadn't quite found that idiosyncratic style he'd master on his later albums here, you can still definitely hear traces of it in his tone and delivery. The upside to him not having settled into his trademark flow yet here is you can get to hear him rap at a variety of tempos, and there's a youthful bounce that would understandably get replaced with experience the more that he aged. However, while Sean P is my favorite member from the entire Boot Camp Clique, he's only one half of this legendary duo, and the other is about the most perfect partner for Ruck that you could possibly ask for. Rockness Monster, or Rock at the time, is sort of a different case because of course he's progressed like anyone rapping consistently over the last 30 years, but unlike P and most rappers of the time, he had his instantly recognizable voice already right out the gate, and paired it with one of the hardest, most forward-thinking flows in the game to the point where that really hasn't changed that much over this time and it still sounds fresh as ever. Their chemistry on here is through the roof, and they match the themes and quality of their bars pretty evenly, while still bringing unique perspectives. I actually think they improved as a duo as time went on, because Sean's voice became equally as deep as Rock's, yet they still had different and easily separable ways of approaching tracks. P also became slower and more studied with his flow, which made the contrast with Rockness Monster and his choppy, rugged, and often speedy delivery even better, though it's worth acknowledging Ruck still had an element of that restrained side back in the early days of this debut here. As influential as some of the albums by their affiliates are, for me none of them have aged quite as well as Nocturnal, because it's a rare case where both members of a duo are well ahead of their contemporaries, so their only real competition in a way becomes each other, which leads them to push themselves as to not fall behind the other member. While both of these legends have countless quotable lines on here, I wanted to share one of my favorite verses that Sean Price blessed us with on this thing. He says, I control the masses with metaphors that's massive. Don't ask if the rapper Ruck bash shit like caches. I'm drastic. When it comes to verbs, I be flippin', cause herbs just be shitting off the words that I'm kicking. I scold you, double-headed sword for the petty, but I told you. Bitch rappers that heads ain't ready, now I mold you. Back to the bitch that you are. Bucking with the ruckus, get bruised, battered, and scarred. This LP also has one of the all-time great album intros in rap music, with the two master MCs giving a little teaser of the lyrical slaughter that's ahead of the listener. It's another example of making every second count on your debut, because these guys spare no expense with a whopping 17 tracks and a runtime that just cracks an hour. Yet I swear every time I throw this thing on, it feels so much shorter since I'm enjoying it so much, and I always end up going, "Aw man, it's the outro already." Don't get me wrong, it's not that I'd actually fault the album for being too short or underdeveloped. I think making even an hour of material that doesn't feel bloated at all is pretty applaudable, let alone to go past that and still hold the audience's interest. It's more of an attribute I think a lot of the best albums in any genre have, where you'll be enjoying every song and the overall experience so much you almost just don't want it to end at all. A lot of that can be attributed to the dark, sinister instrumentals contributed by Buckshot, the Beat Miners, Dr. Killpatient, E. Swift, Shalik, Sean J. Period, Supreme, and Lord Jamar of Brand Nubian, who seem to have a hand in a lot of these Bootcamp Click related debuts. There's also some killer features in the form of Illinois, Vinia Mojica, Representatives, Louisville Slugga, and the rest of OGC. For my honorable mentions on this one, I want to shout out Intro, Here We Come, Understand, Sean Price, Clans, Posses, Crews, and Cliques, Place to Be, The Square or Triple R, DeWiggy, Prowl, Therapy, and Great Unknown. My three favorite tracks overall would have to be Lead the Brains Blow, Operation Lockdown, and La Flor La Fla Eshkoshka. Thank you for watching my 110th video. Next time we're going to discuss the first female rapper to have an album go platinum. So if you know your hip-hop history, you can more than likely piece that puzzle together. But either way, check in for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite tracks off this game-changing meeting of minds are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.